All right, this week there was going to be one topic that I was going to talk about, but something actually better came up in the course of the week. So I'm pretty much going to be talking about like why religion has no place in mental health. And so I'm going to go about like in a case why AA has no business in substance abuse recovery, or pretty much getting better and moving on with your life from your substance abuse, or you could, in a sense, extend that to any mental health, whether any other mental disorder, whether it's depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disorders are good examples. So there can be a case that AA is actually a cult. There's this thing called the BITE method. BITE is like a behavior, information, thought, and emotion, and the BITE method is used to showcase on whether an organization is a cult or not. Now, a cult, using the BITE method, controls one of the four aspects: the behavior, information, thought, or emotion. Now, if with all four being tied together, if you can control one, you can pretty much control all the others. In like a case against AA, like you hold the behavior of like where you pretty much have to do like you have to make meetings, you have to do the steps, you have have to do everything AA says. So like that's how you can control the behaviors. The information, the way AA controls that is like everything you need to, in a sense, recover from addiction is within the first 164 pages of the big book, and that's all you need. So the way AA controls it is like the big book is all you need. Disregard everything else, especially when it comes to like all the science and psychology and like all the breakthroughs that we've made, especially in the last 20 or 30 years, like all the scientific and psychological breakthroughs that we've made that showcases like the concepts of like CBT, like REBT, and like with the science, like with the brain scans that showcases what like substance abuse actually has on like the brain and like the biochemistry and everything. So the way that AA controls that is like just disregard all that, because like all your answers are in the first 164 pages of our religious text. Thought, like controlling that information gets into thought, so like you have to like think like a certain way, and like you have to use like the slogans, the speech, and like quote the big book, and like and if you think anything else outside of like the literature and the culture and everything, like that's completely wrong. And so like that's how that's controlled. And so like if you go against that, you're pretty much like an outcast, and like which gets into emotion, the E part of it. So like you're like pretty much treated like shit if you go against or you disagree anything of it. So with using the BITE method, you can make the case that AA is a cult, and so like in that case, it's definitely has no place in substance abuse treatment. Now, it has yet to be presented into a court of law whether or not using this method or any other method, whether or not it is actually a cult. So I mean, yes, you can with what I just laid out, you can make the argument that AA is a cult, but it has yet to objectively be presented in a sense, a court of law. And with the stuff that I just went over, it has yet to be objectively proved on whether it's a cult or not, even though I mean, yeah, sure, I just spent like a few minutes like doing a quick rundown on why it actually is. But regardless of whether or not it's a cult, it is a religious organization. Now, back in 96 and 97 here in New York State, there was a case, it's Griffin versus Coughlin. It was brought up to like all the way up to the New York State Supreme Court, and it has been proven in that case to be a religious program. Now, the reason why this all went all the way through that is because Griffin brought to the case a lawsuit saying that because he was court ordered into AA, and he was stating that like, look, you just violated my constitutional rights by sending me to a religious program. So in this case, it went all the way up to the New York State Supreme Court, and they decided, the judges, like, with the case presented before, I'm like, yes, this is a religious organization. And so my whole argument is like religion has no place in mental health, because if someone was a schizophrenic, we wouldn't send them to an Islamic mosque to get medical treatment. If someone was suffering from depression, we wouldn't send them to a Jewish synagogue for medical treatment. If someone was like suffering from like a social anxiety, we wouldn't send them to the Catholic Church for medical treatment. And yet here we are, we're still sending people for medical treatment for substance abuse into AA. There's even to this day, like that case was, like I said, back in 96 and 97. And here it is, like as of the recording of this video, 2023, and people are still court ordered into AA. Now, the only reason they still do that is the way they word it is you have to go into like your court order into a self-help group. Now, that pretty much raises the whole question that AA isn't a self-help group, because like getting self-help, you getting into like the 7 pillars that I've gone over, like especially pillar 1 with community. You in order to get self-help, you're going to want to start surrounding yourself with people that are actually going to help you, like with all the content I put out, like getting into the gym, fixing your nutrition, making sure you're getting enough sleep and hydration with recovery, working on your mobility, and like especially mindfulness, like working with your mental health, doing things like journaling and like a meditation, working with professionals like counselors, therapists, and everything to basically get your head on straight. You don't see any of that in AA, because like you're pretty much like downtrodden. You're always told that you're completely worthless and you're completely hopeless because you're completely powerless over your substance abuse, and so you are actually beaten down and treated like shit, and at the very best. And like I've said before, if you even question anything about AA or the whole program, you're pretty much brushed off at the very best and everything. So, and another thing with why AA isn't the self-help group is if like you were to actually get into the documentary, The 13th Step, it highlights all the abuse that goes on in AA. Like a big example like that they use is like a lot of people like a lot of times like the people that have been around for years, if not decades, they'll sit there and when they're talking, they'll say that like I'm not completely sober or clean until I was completely off all my drugs, anything. So what they'll insinuate is that like you're not sober and or clean until you get off all drugs and alcohol and everything. So like the way they insinuate that is like, what's dangerous is like if you're someone who's actually like using like a medication to wean yourself off like substance abuse. The way they insinuate it is that it gets in your head like, oh, I need to get off this right away, and that can be very dangerous, especially like if like you're on medication for like a bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, because if you go off a medication like that, like it could be like to the case of lethality, and you could completely go off the deep end and like hurt, if not kill yourself or others. So like they only insinuate it so that way they can sit there and like kind of wash their hands and be like, well, I wasn't talking about them, I was talking about myself, even though, like I said, they are insinuating that you need to like cut off all drugs and or alcohol and everything. So like there is no like a self-help in it, in the sense that like there's really no getting better in the AA program. And because you're constantly beaten down, you're constantly told how like you're worthless and everything. So like the Quackaholics Anonymous channel that I've gone over before showcases this perfectly. Like if you get into talk with anyone who's ever been in AA and has since gotten out, they'll also state like, yeah, well, you if you don't follow like the whole like if you don't fall in line and buy everything hook, line, and sinker, you're pretty much outcast and everything. So now, getting back to the 13th step and everything, do I necessarily know if there's any abuse going on in the AA rooms in my area? I can't say for sure. I mean, the only time I would, in a sense, associate myself with people within AA would be when I was actually going to meetings, and I really haven't had any, virtually no contact with the people in AA since I've left and everything. So and the whole way you're treated once you're left, it's oh, well, he's nobody. He's out drinking again and everything. So. Now, of course, this is pretty much the negative aspects of how you're treated in AA, and with it being proven a religion, it needs to get out of mental health. But the big reason why it's still in mental health is because of if you look at the treatment industry, you're looking at the tunes of billions of dollars spent on that every year between insurance companies and treatment centers. And with most treatment centers, last I knew, 90% of treatment centers were 12-step based. They basically funnel people right into AA. So AA in a sense is a cash cow, sucking on the teats of the insurance and treatment centers, because they get funneled people right in. And there's no getting, like I said, there's no getting better in AA, because nothing is done to, in a sense, set you up, yourself up to put your substance abuse away and in the past and move on with your life, because it's always put in your forefront. And especially look at how worthless you are, look at how much of a piece of shit you are. And it's reiterated over and over again. It's just because you put down your substance, you still have to keep it in the forefront of your mind and be constantly in fear, oh, if I don't do this, I'm going to drink again. No. There's no getting better, because you always have to do the program. Of course, there's no such thing as the AA program, because the like I've been saying, there's no getting better from it. You have to do it for the rest of your life. So using college as an example, if you're going to work for NASA and you go in and get a PhD in quantum physics and quantum mechanics, you're not going to sit there in college and oh, well, I have to spend the rest of my life studying quantum physics and quantum mechanics in college, and I can never graduate because no, you'll sit there and you go through the whole PhD program, and then you graduate to be able to move on to getting that job at NASA. Now, that doesn't mean that once you get the job that you're not going to stop learning. The whole concept is that you don't stay stuck just in college because oh, well, yeah, I can't graduate and everything, because that's the whole concept of AA. There's no graduation, there's no moving on with your life. Whereas if you look at all the in a sense all the programs, or the whole organizations that are based on science and psychology, the Smart Recovery that I've gone over, the Phoenix Recovery that I made a video about. There's also Reach Out Recovery, Rational Recovery. There's the secular organizations of sobriety. There's all these different organizations that are based on science and psychology, not early 20th century religion like AA is based on. That once you work with a professional, and you're working maybe you're grasping the concepts of the CBT and the REBT that I mentioned. You work with a therapist and work with professionals, and maybe you set yourself up with an actual community that of people that want to see the better for you, not just being going into AA and being constantly drummed on how worthless and how much of a piece of shit you are. You work with set yourself up with a community of people, friends, family, and you surround yourself with people who not only want the better for you, but you want the better for them as well. So in a sense, you're creating your own tribe type of deal, where you're bettering each other, constantly encouraging each other to continue getting better. You work with a therapist, you go through quite quite commonly you go through outpatient. You work with a therapist or a counselor or like a psychologist for 6 months, maybe a year or two, and you build yourself up and you actually work through all the psychological issues that drove you to whatever substance abuse that you were using. So like some of the common things that I've noticed is like the depression and anxiety that I mentioned earlier. Like so those are some of the common things that led people to maybe like alcohol abuse. And like working with a professional, you get into the actual layers and actually into the nitty gritty details of like okay, what's all this stuff that led you down to substance abuse, and let's fix the problems. With AA, there is no like getting with those issues, because like those aren't our concern. Our concern is basically like we want to hyper focus on your drinking and control your thinking on like, oh well, look at how worthless you are because like you became a worthless alcoholic, and you're going to continually be a worthless alcoholic for the rest of your life, and you need to buy into this or else you're going to go off the deep end and everything. Whereas like working with a professional, actually get into the reasons behind you drink, you work past them, and then you can move on with your life. And so like with my alcohol abuse, I mean I could identify as an alcoholic, but I'm not. And like I don't see myself as an alcoholic. Look, I had spent years of using alcohol, yes, but I've overcome it. I've dealt with the issues on which led me to drink and everything. I've now since moved on with my life, and I am working towards better in my life, and I try to in every aspect. Now, does that mean I'm like perfect and everything? No. Like an example I'll use just this past week is like doing the old school iron program for Athlean X. Like I just upped my deadlift 225 the other day, and like I noticed my grip strength was failing, so I couldn't do the whole 3x5, 3 sets of 5 reps. So like it's like, oh well, here's something that I have to work on. I have to actually work on my grip strength, which was like why I failed. So like and like with the AA so-called program, if I were to bring something like that up and like, oh, you see, you're a complete failure. You're totally like worthless. You might as well not work towards improving. Instead, I've got I've worked through the issues and got the mindset like, okay, here's something I failed at. I'm not going to sit here and consider myself completely worthless and everything. I just look at it as like, okay, look, I've got like a weak grip strength to the point where I've gone up to 225 with my deadlift. I need to work on my grip strength if I want to progress even further. So here's something that okay, well, here's something new that I have to work on. And it's like a constant like of looking at like which aspect you like you fail at. Like next example that I used that like this past week. Now another example is like you could be messing up with one of your relationships. Like you could be in like a marriage, and it could be going through a rocky situation, and like okay, like instead of sitting like, oh, everything's a failure, I'm totally worthless, and like just giving up and everything, like you work with your spouse and everything, you start working through ways, you start communicating, and you like on ways to improve your relationship. So that's like something that's completely different that you can use as an example where you can start improving upon. So this is pretty much why we need to get religion completely out of mental health and mental health care. It has no place in it, and like if you're still in AA and you're looking at like getting out, start looking into other the programs or like the other concepts and stuff that I use, that like a Smart Recovery and all the other ones that I've mentioned, the Phoenix Recovery, which I've done a video on. Start looking at getting yourself out and like start bettering your community, which is like pillar one, because like the phrase, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you're surrounding yourself with AA people, most likely you're going to be a miserable sack of shit, because most people in there are miserable sacks of shit, because like they even though they won't admit to it, they realize like it's I have to do this the rest of my life. And they're completely hopeless, and they have no, like, especially people who have been in there for decades, they have no intention of leaving. And so my message isn't to the people who are going to be sit there stuck in AA for the rest of their lives. My message is for like people that are like me, who might still be in AA and are looking on getting out, or people who are just starting out and they see AA and they might think like I did when I first started, it's the only option. That's not not the only option. It is not an option at all, because you want to get out. So especially if you like I mentioned the 13 step documentary, I highly suggest you watch that, because it was made in response to the Carla Breda murder case that happened back in 2015, which kind of blew the lid on like all the abuse and everything. So that goes on in the rooms. And so my biggest a suggestion to people that are in AA, that know that everything about it is complete and utter bullshit and are trying to get out, find like the other alternatives that I've mentioned. And you got this great device called the internet that you can use on your phone, on your tablet, or your computer, that you can sit there and access information. So you have the information at your fingertips. All you have to do is pretty much like a Google search. Like you can type in alternatives to AA, and I'm sure like a lot of like the alternatives that I've mentioned will pop up. So and that's just not for people that are looking to get out of AA. That's also for people that are just starting out in putting their substance abuse behind them and getting on with their lives. Find other alternatives, because if you do get into the AA religion, you're not going to get better, and the chances are you're actually going to get worse, because there's this guy named George Valiant who did a study to try and prove that AA works, and he actually proved that it didn't work. And a lot of the people that most of the people that failed either went back to drinking just as bad, if not worse. And there were a number of suicides in that study. So and of course that's pretty much the only study that's really ever been done on AA. So you can't sit here and step back and do a meta-analysis, which is like a combination of several studies, because there's just that one. So you pretty much in a sense have to rely on anecdotal evidence of people that have been through AA, like myself, or Quackaholics Anonymous, or if you talk with any number of people that have been in AA and have since left, the chances are they'll pretty much be saying the same thing. You need to pretty much get out of the AA religion if you actually want to get better and get on with your life from your substance abuse. And I'm probably going any AA adherents that are going to come across this, I'm probably going to piss off, and they're going to start calling me a dry drunk, or they'll do ad hominem attacks on me and saying that I can't remember the last time I drank, because I don't keep track of that, because it's not important to me. So the question is when's the last time you had a cheesecake? You actually have to step back and when's the last time I did have a cheesecake? You have to think about it, because it's not important. So I don't keep, like I said, I don't keep track of the last time I drank, because my substance abuse is not important to me anymore. It's something yes, it's something I've done in the past, and but I have gotten on with my life, and I can use that 2020 hindsight vision to be well, yes, I don't want to go back to the type of person I was, but it's I don't let that define me, because that's who I was. It's not who I am today, and it's definitely not going to be who I am tomorrow, or next week, next year, or next decade and everything, because unlike the AA members, I have actually put behind my substance abuse, and I have moved on with my life. And that's the whole point of mental health, is actually getting better and moving on with your life. Now, in the case of something like depression or anxiety, where you might need medication, there's no getting past it, because I'll still need medication. But doing the stuff that I've gone over, with the 7 pillars, and and talking about all the stuff that I do, if you do the content I've gotten in, yeah, you may still need medication and everything, but like, isn't it better to take for depression? Isn't it better to take 5 milligrams of your prescription once a day versus 10 milligrams 3 times a day? So like that's kind of the point of moving on. Like now you like I just said, like you may not necessarily be entirely move on because you might be in a position where you might need still need some medication to get the chemical balance in your brain or your body or something, depending on whatever like a mental disorder you have and everything. And like schizophrenia and bipolar are definitely I think prime examples of something that like if you're definitely on medication and you're under a doctor's supervision, keep doing it because if it's working for you, and like then yes, definitely keep doing it and everything. So but the whole idea, the whole concept, especially when it comes to substance abuse, is putting it in the past and telling it to fuck off, see you later, I'm going on with my life. And basically continually improve your life. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that improvement's going to be linear. You're going to face times where you're not going to be making much of any progress. But once you do break through like those plateaus, and like I'm sure I've used like the 6 month plateau I used of weight loss where I wasn't making any progress, but I did get nutrition in check and that and everything. So that's an example, personal example that I can use for myself. So again, like you're going to have to like work with and I can't reiterate enough, actually working with a professional, not some religious zealot that's in AA trying to push you like to some religious bullshit. Work with a professional, work through your issues, and so that way you can actually move on with your like I have and like so many others who have like gotten through their substance abuse and continue to without the religious program of AA.